Prior to human modification of the environment, the climate was relatively stable and changes occurred over great periods of time. This was made possible by a delicate equilibrium of carbon forcing, where forest fires release carbon as CO2 and photosynthesis acts as a sink that stores the carbon back into the earth. With industrialization ramping up in the late 1800s, humans began rapidly releasing carbon that would have otherwise remained stored deep in the earth for thousands of years by burning fossil fuels. In just a century and a half of this, we've nearly doubled the content of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere from 280 parts per million to 410, and with this, we've seen a 1 degree centigrade increase in average global temperature. The Paris Climate Agreement is a commitment that nearly every nation made to voluntarily attempt to reduce emissions with the goal of never passing 2 degrees. Studies found we have a 1 in 20 chance of staying within that line. In the New York Times' Losing Earth, Nathaniel Rich wrote, "If by some miracle we are able to limit warming to 2 degrees, we will only have to negotiate with the extinction of the world's tropical reefs, sea level rise of several meters, and the abandonment of the Persian Gulf." The climate scientist James Hansen has called 2-degree warming a prescription for long-term disaster. This is a civilization-ending scenario that we're on course for, and we're still globally increasing the amount of carbon we release into the atmosphere each year.
We have nearly 100 years' worth of natural gas and more than 250 years' worth of clean, beautiful coal. We are a top producer of petroleum and the #1 producer of natural gas. We have so much more than we ever thought possible. We are really in the driving seat. And you know what? We don't want to let other countries take away our sovereignty and tell us what to do and how to do it. That's not going to happen. With these incredible resources, my administration will seek not only the American energy independence that we've been looking for so long, but American energy dominance. And we're going to be an exporter. We will be dominant. We will export American energy all
After
over the world.
campaigning on energy dominance and restarting the economically inefficient coal industry, President Trump withdrew the United States from the Paris Commitment. The U.S. is one of the richest, largest nations with one of the highest per capita carbon footprints. And instead of using its vast richness to decarbonize, its leaders are more than ever pushing the route of global death.
You know, I know we're an oil country, and we need American energy, and by the way, American energy production. You wouldn't always know it, but you know, it went up every year I was president. And you know, that whole suddenly America's like the biggest oil producer and the biggest that was me, people. I just want you to
Justin Trudeau's Canadian government and former President Barack Obama have remarkably better climate PR, but they make the same justifications of economic growth and exploiting the resources that we have over recognizing our inability to do so without causing far greater harm globally.
A few people, including quite a few in my own party, thought I was crazy. But guess what? A little over 4 years later, with a number of strong Trudeau Liberals elected across Alberta, we're on our way to getting 3 new pipeline projects underway, which will help connect Canada's oil patch with energy markets around the world. As I said on the very first trip to the oil patch back in 2012, no country would find 173 billion barrels of oil in the ground and just leave them there. The resource will be developed.
The Trans Mountain Pipeline Trudeau and Alberta hope to build from the tar sands to the Coast Salish Sea would not only make the industry more profitable, but expand capacity greatly, despite claims that its only purpose is to make export safer and cleaner. Canada absolutely needs to leave its tar sands in the ground. Burning them would take over 1/3 of the total carbon budget that the entire planet can use. NASA climate scientist James Hansen called Canada's reserves game over for climate, risking extinction of 50% of species. And this is where the sunk cost fallacy comes in. According to Arks and Blummer, the sunk cost fallacy is continuing a behavior or endeavor as a result of previously invested resources, either in time, money, or effort. People cling on to whatever they've invested emotion and labor into, and the more that they have, the more that they feel they need to carry it out to the end, despite all arguments that they're wasting energy maintaining the current situation. In the context of climate change, this can explain why we've been relatively slow to move away from fossil fuels. The oil is in the ground. Recent technologies such as fracking and oil pipelines and surveying have been developed that make it easier and cheaper than ever to utilize. The systems of corporations exist to extract it, bringing immediate economic benefits and political winning statements for politicians on either side of the aisle. But the damage that's done is far greater for everyone. As 350.org founder Bill McKibben wrote in The Guardian, cleaning up the tar sands complex in Alberta, the biggest, ugliest scar on the surface of the earth, is already estimated to cost more than the total revenues generated by all the oil that's come out of the ground. The sunk cost fallacy has resulted in continuous investment in the system of fossil fuels, despite the pressing need to heavily invest in renewable energy and reduce our total energy usage. Canada has the third largest oil reserves in the world, and the US is implementing a coup and preparing to invade the nation with the largest oil reserves.
Venezuela is one of the three countries I call the troika of tyranny. It'll make a big difference to the United States economically if we could have American oil companies really invest in and produce the oil capabilities in Venezuela. It'd be good for the people.
These fossil fuels need to be left in the ground, and there won't be any winners if competitive drilling is continued.